Hey everybody, and welcome to Dude's Brunch, the late night morning talk show where four people talk about four things they found on the internet. With me this week on a very special Thursday night brunch is my favorite co-host that lives in the suburbs of Cincinnati, Tyler Reed. What did you have for brunch today?
Oddly specific we are, Taylor. I had leftover macaroni and cheese and some mixed fruit. Mixed it up on a weekday. Ooh.
Wait, so you ate macaroni and cheese and mixed fruit into it, or you had mixed fruit and macaroni and cheese in separate bowls?
Macaroni and cheese, comma, mixed, and, wait. How would I separate that? I guess there's only two things. And, there's an and there, yes.
There are two ands there.
Yeah. Yes.
Secondary question. Was cheese spelled with an S or a Z, and was fruit spelled with an IU or a double O?
I don't speak English anymore, I'm sorry. I can't answer this question.
My favorite grammar Nazi, Sean Evans, is here. Sean.
What?
No, that's not true. Emily Bamforth is my favorite grammar Nazi. I don't know, my favorite person with a mustache on the podcast? No, that's not even true either, because you all have mustaches. I don't know, I was trying to be really oddly specific. Sean, what the fuck did you have for brunch today?
Coffee. Coffee and brownies. It was a very sweet morning for me.
Was it brownie flavored coffee or coffee?
I love you. No, it was two separate entities, but I totally deserve that.
Returning to the show, our guest from the Nerd Optimal podcast, it's Albert. Hey Albert, what did you have for brunch today?
Greetings. I also had coffee, and I added sugar to it, so they combined to form one item, which is just coffee.
They mighty morphed together to create sweetened coffee. Well,
Can I be the one with the gun axe?
That is the one with the gun axe.
That's the one I want to be. Alright.
Yeah, black coffee just has a really big boot that it kicks you in the ass with. Anyway, I'm your host, Taylor, and for brunch this morning, I had scrambled eggs combined with salsa to create spicy scrambled eggs, and then also toast and coffee separately.
I hate this podcast.
And it hates you.
Rude.
Now that we've gotten through the introduction portion of the show, which is about brunch, we're going to talk about the rest of the show, which is not at all about brunch, and get to our first topic, which comes from me. I wanted to get podcasters' reactions to Facebook's reactions. Because I can say react and reaction as much as I want, because you can't trademark that word, fine brothers. So, not that I'm salty or anything. I'm assuming you guys probably saw this, but if not, I sent around an article. Facebook added reactions instead of just the like button, and so now you can react to statuses and images with a wide range of 6 emotions. What was your immediate reaction to this?
Blank face.
Old man yells at cloud. That's my initial reaction.
I just didn't care. You know, I even deleted the Facebook app off my phone, but I check out my computer just to make sure nothing crazy is going on. But I'm out of Facebook. I find now this might be my own old man moment. I find LinkedIn more interesting than Facebook.
That is an old man moment.
Just like the old crotchety man. Like, where are my business connections here? No more cat photos.
Tell me, how much CBS do you watch?
I
was being sarcastic. Don't answer that question. I don't want to incriminate you like that. So, my initial...
How do you like find these things on Facebook?
What do you mean?
How do you... I haven't been able to find where you use them at.
You hover over the like button with your mouse, and they show up.
Oh, okay. See, I had no idea that's how that worked.
Yeah, there's no instruction guide to this. So. Yeah, so I'm fine with this. I don't really have like a positive or negative reaction other than the fact that they're probably going to charge me as an advertiser for different types of reactions. So I'm expecting like an angry face to be cheaper than a smiley face or some crazy nonsense. I don't know. I can just see them doing that.
What does that mean? I think I need you to read to tell me more about that.
So on Facebook, you typically pay per impression like a fraction of a cent, but then you pay a different rate for different types of clicks. So, for example, somebody clicking through to your website costs more than somebody hitting the like button, and a comment costs more than a like but less than a website click.
Oh.
So I can just see like the different types of reactions eventually costing different amounts of money.
That certainly makes it sound a lot less sexy.
I know, right? So, do you guys miss the simpler, halcyon days of last week when we only had a like button?
What I miss are Facebook pokes. Now, that was a way to get someone's attention.
A simpler day. Simpler time when literally Facebook was a feed of things and you could poke people.
And that's it.
Right. And then, like, you liked a bunch of pages that never updated or anything. And then, like, 5 years later...
the sleeping on the cool side of the pillow page?
Yep. And they're like, shit, I can cash in on this gold mine I made when I was, like, 14.
Anybody else? Are you mourning the like button?
It's still there. It didn't leave us. It's in our hearts always.
But no one's gonna
That's the most
just
Sean
like...
answer I've ever heard. I think it's fine that they did this. I really kind of just wanted a like button and a dislike button, which is my next question. Are you upset that there's not a dislike button? Because it seems like there should just be a thumbs up and a thumbs down, and like we don't need all these other faces. At least that's how I feel about it.
Would you use it? Would
Yes.
you use a dislike button if it was on there?
Yes.
Okay.
Because sometimes people post sad things, and you don't want to like a sad thing.
But that feels so, like, one-dimensional use, though. It's either gonna be for people that died, or for, like trolling people. Like, what else is that gonna be for?
Well, and I think that's why they haven't put it in there, is because you could use it for trolling.
Right. It's very negative, unnecessarily negative. I mean, like, you could just make it angry.
Which is what they did.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, angry is as good as it's going to get, and it certainly displays a better range of possible potential emotions than dislike. So, it feels a little clunky from a user perspective because you have to like hold down the like button and then like, we have a new little menu, and you're like, ooh, I don't know.
Yeah, there certainly are a lot of steps involved.
I don't know, like, it's definitely the MySpace feel when they feel like so much stuff going on that you're like, I don't need all this. Take it away.
So now, every post, I'm on Facebook for the first time since this has happened, and so every post on the bottom there's going to be each icon, and as I hover over them, it has a list of everyone who's,
Liked or wowed or...
So eventually, a big viral post is going to have all 6 of them and just have a list of... So it doesn't really... Like, it doesn't have a numerical number of how many said love or haha or dislike. Not that I can see. Or not dislike.
You gotta click onto it. When it says you and 534 other people, it then gives you a rundown of like 52 angries, 37 ha-has, 8 loves.
Oh, yeah, I see now. Well,
yeah, it talks...
So it's another layer to interact with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It talks in the article I shared about they're trying to only show the 3 that people clicked on the most. So, like, which 3 reactions? Because showing all 6 is way too much.
Yeah. Okay. Scrolling through the feed, trying to see what people have been up to. Yeah, a bunch of likes. Yeah, and stuff with dislike button, it seems like most of the emotions are positive already. Like, love, haha, and wow are all pretty much likes. And then sad and angry are the only, negative ones. So would it be more interesting to see 3 positive and 3 negative ones? I don't know, what's...
Yeah.
a more even split? Because it's skewing towards being positive, but I don't know what's another good negative emotion that would be evenly represented. You know?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like
A flamethrower.
Good.
I was gonna say like a jealousy, maybe.
That was their seventh choice, actually. That was cut. Flamethrower.
Just barely did make the cut. Almost.
We lobbied hard.
Yeah, I don't know. There should probably be a sixth one. I agree.
Probably,
House cat. There you go.
It's just Pusheen.
I don't know why Pusheen isn't in there. That seems like an ideal choice.
So in the article, it talks about they interview a social psychologist who helped with this project, and she talks about how these likes and different like buttons are a way of conveying nonverbal cues on Facebook. How do you feel about that? I mean, obviously it is a nonverbal cue, but do you think it's like on par or approaching like facial expressions and other nonverbals? Because that's what they're trying to do with it. Sean is shrugging for the listeners. Tyler is
I don't know.
making a concerned face, and Albert is also slightly concerned, but not as furrowed as Tyler. See, and that's what I mean. Like, I just had to explain all of your facial expressions, which are all basically saying the same thing, but in different ways.
That's right.
I'm not sure that this does that.
Well, it seems like we had a unemotional response to that, and Facebook is probably trying to drive traffic by getting people, you know, wow, awesome, or boo, angry, and just having, you know, the seventh face be a blank face, which is usually my reaction when I'm sitting in front of a computer, just stone face clicking through 1,000 things. You know, that's not going to drive traffic. Oh, this post received 1,000 meh faces. You know, they're trying to get more people addicted to Facebook, and I don't think
They want to drive that outrage.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Riding the rage train. Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. Sean, Tyler, any thoughts on that? None.
I guess like
Sean just has no thoughts on this whole thing.
it's not enough. It's not enough to like reinvigorate my love for Facebook. Now, if they would have put like Kimojis on here, that would have been different. But giving me like 5 new options, it's not enough.
We are so topical this week. It's just ridiculous.
What the fuck's a Kimoji?
How do you don't know what a Kimoji is?
I don't know what that is. I'm looking it up.
Kimoji just shut down the App Store.
It's
Why don't you tell the fine people what it is in case they don't know, or they're listening in the future and we've erased it from their memories?
Are they Kim Kardashian emojis?
I don't
Yes.
like this.
Yes.
Clicking.
I mean, okay. I mean,
Kanye just got $1 from each of you looking that up.
Yep.
fuck.
And he made $1 million a minute. So, I have 2 more questions. First, what do you think Facebook is going to do with this data? All of this reaction data?
I feel like they're gonna do a whole. I mean, they're probably gonna do a lot with it, but it just feels like they could have done it with a lot less. It feels like it's too many options. Like basically we've been saying this whole time is 6 feels like too many. You need to have 6, or you need to have they need less than 6 or more than 6. Because like if you had 3, that feels like better quantifiable data, you know. But like what we're saying, like love. What's the difference between love and like? You know, what's haha do? Like, how are you going to discern those? What is that going to mean? I just don't know what that's going to turn into in terms of data.
Yeah.
Maybe that they'll find out that it doesn't do anything.
Right.
They can cut them down. They can add more. They can take them out. Maybe.
I mean, I think it will add valuable data points. Maybe for like social media marketers and everything, you can gauge reaction. The Facebook's research little department can, you know, have a little more fine-tuned data, but not any more than they already had. So,
Right.
Well, Taylor, as our data guy,
Yeah, so here's the thing about this. I like the idea of getting this data. I really like the idea of if I put out an ad, you can respond to it positively or negatively, and that will influence future ads that I create. I don't think people are going to interact with ads this way, though. Because how often do you press the like button on an ad already? Now I'm adding a second press where you have to pick how much you like or are angered by an ad. I think we're making it harder for people to give the feedback that they want the people to give, which is unfortunate. Like, there should be an easier way to do that.
Yeah, I've been watching the show Shark Tank a lot, and that kind of ties into my entrepreneur topic later. But every now and then there'll be like an internet company guy, and they'll be like, and we have 20,000 impressions on Facebook. And I'm like, good for you. And then the shark's like, well, what does that go into? Cash flow and all these business terms. But now I'm thinking, on next season Shark Tank, they're going to be like, well, I have 500 wows, 200 likes, and 70, ha-has. And they're like, well, 70 ha-has. What if you had 90 ha-has? That'd be a better user interaction level. So, yeah, it's just going to become this weird chain of, how many viral comedians are going to be talking about their ha-ha levels. And is that going to translate into, like, an actual money-making deal? Like, is try to leverage that, for, I don't know, internet comedy groups or stuff like that. It just seems like it can go in a lot of interesting, behind the scenes, directions. But I guess the end game that we know for a fact is Facebook is trying to make more money. So if there's somewhere to make money, that's the end goal, regardless of, like what Taylor said, they're probably charging more for this data or that data. And that's probably, exactly what they're going for.
Second topic this week comes from Sean, who is continuing our coverage of the Race to the Bottom 2016.
Hey everyone, it's Sean.
Hey.
Hey, Sean.
I hate you.
So this week I want to talk to you guys about the election. Well, kind of where we're at. Maybe not the election, but in terms of the primaries. So I asked everybody to ask me a question, but Taylor was the only one to ask, which is okay, so I came with some supplemental materials to ask you guys questions about. But first, I want to address Taylor's question. Taylor asked about what's going on with the third parties, and this is my summation of everything that's going on there. There's really only three third parties that have any kind of voice, and by voice I mean not much. There's the Green Party, the Constitution Party, and the Libertarian Party. The Constitution Party is generally full of candidates that are really conservative and want to go back to the original interpretation of the Constitution. There's a bunch of them. Check them out. Basically, the only thing that all of these parties have together, being third parties, is that they think the two-party system is corrupt and messed up, so they want to change it. In terms of the Green Party, their candidate looking like this year is going to be, her name is Jill Stein. She ran for governor of Massachusetts in 2002, and she was the Green Party candidate in 2012. Her campaign platform primarily consists of building a stronger middle class, increasing green jobs, and creating a better environment. The Libertarian Party, Nate Silver wrote an interesting article on 538 about how more Americans might be libertarians than they think they are. But their candidate looks like it's going to be Gary Johnson. He was the former governor of New Mexico. He was a two-term governor there for 8 years. And he was their candidate in 2012 when he left the GOP because I guess they weren't right-wing enough for him. So that's generally the state of third parties right there, which we'll just kind of get that out of the way because that's kind of boring. But you guys have any questions about that? Any reactions to that?
I'm surprised that Gary Johnson is running again, but I'm also not that surprised that Gary Johnson is running again. And that's my reaction.
There's that.
I mean, compared to a lot of the candidates, he actually has experience in government.
Yeah, so why not?
It feels like this year there's like a better chance of people actually voting third party than there ever has been. Does that, especially if Donald Trump doesn't get the Republican nomination and becomes a third-party candidate, which do you think that could lead to a huge shift? Do you think that would create a swing in popularity in some third parties, or do you predict, or is this basically the same?
I don't know. I think it depends on whether or not he wins, like clearly from his caucus performances and primary performances, there is a base out there that wants to support him. But if he went on his own, I imagine that would kind of be like when Theodore Roosevelt ran on the Bull Moose Party against Taft and kind of just split the vote more so than like was able to get a clear majority. But I think there's a lot that has to happen. And I have a little infographic that we'll talk about later that talks about that kind of thing. But I don't know. We'll just have to see how it goes. Nothing is decided yet, that's for sure. I guess the next one I want to move on to, speaking of that, we'll just transition in it. So I have a graph that I'm going to post on Dude's Brunch show notes and everything so everybody can look at it. But to summarize it for you guys, basically it's a graph that shows so far the distribution of delegates for nominations. Do you guys know how that works? You're kind of familiar with that process?
Vaguely, in that it's very skewed and kind of gerrymandered.
Not really. In terms of,
or no, I'm thinking of
state, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was thinking about the electoral
Districts?
college.
Okay, yeah, that.
My bad.
Yeah, well, it kind of has to do with that, but it has more to do with delegates. So, like, every time you win a caucus or you win a primary, sometimes depending on whether it's winner take all or whether it's proportional or representative, you get a certain number of candidates to support you. And once you hit that maximum number from your party, that's theoretically how it's assigned, during the convention once everybody votes for you. As of the 21st, just to tell you about the Republicans, only 4% of delegates were committed to any candidate. That's it. So 96% of them have still not committed. So anybody who thinks that Donald Trump has a clear lead is kind of wrong. There's still a lot more time to go. Don't get me wrong, fundraising needed to happen. Like, you need to win these so you can get funds for your campaign. But there's still a long way to go. Super Tuesday is coming up, and that's a lot of states are going to vote. So it's going to be a pretty heavy-handed doling out of candidates at that point in time. And in terms of the Democrats, Hillary Clinton is actually in the lead with 10% of the delegates so far, but 83% have not committed yet. So Bernie only has 7%. But here's the difference. There's like the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats is that the Democrats have what are called super delegates, and they're like party leaders and stuff like that, and their votes actually count for more. And Hillary has 9% of the super delegates. So she actually has quite a lead over Bernie Sanders right now. But that
surprising
said,
no one.
That said, we still have a long way to go. Like, there's still a lot of uncommitted stuff.
I guess related question: when do the delegates typically make the decision?
When they go to the convention, they all vote.
Right, but I mean, like, do we as the public typically know where they're leaning ahead of time, or?
Okay, so generally, yes. Because
I was going to say, because it feels like we always know going into the convention what's going to happen.
Yeah, when they go to the convention, they're usually like committed. There's nothing like contractual about that, but they're generally committed to a particular candidate based on how everybody voted in a caucus or a primary. So yeah,
that's kind of what I figured.
But it can change sometimes. There are always those last minute changes and sways that could make a convention particularly dramatic. So,
okay, that makes sense.
So, I have a friend that is dissatisfied with sort of the two-party system, and so it feels like a lot of people are kind of this way, where they're like, well, I don't really want to vote for either of these people. Is it, for them, is it better to vote for, like, one party over the other? Is it, like, a third-party vote going to be what they want? Or is it just non-voting, like, not voting at all, what they should do? Like, what's the best way for someone to, with, like, outside of the two-party scope, what's the best option for them?
All three answers are probably equally as good. Well, because, so if you find yourself, your political ideologies line with a third party, you can always vote for them. You can always write in your ballot too. Some of these third party candidates don't make it onto state ballots because they don't have enough support to get on there. But you can always vote for them. Another one might be, just voting for somebody who you think would do the best job. Trying to find somebody who's going to match you in terms of everything that you believe is going to be extremely difficult all the time. Regardless of what you think, you're probably not going to believe in everybody, but that happens to be what representative government is about. You find somebody that matches you pretty close in your interests and you vote for them. Or you could not vote. So I know that I've heard a lot of people, I was at dinner the other night and there was a lady who was sitting next to me. I was listening to her conversation and she was saying how if you don't vote, you shouldn't be allowed to be an American because it's a civic responsibility. I don't necessarily agree with this because I think that there are a large amount of people out there that feel like they don't like the candidates. And I think that from a political science standpoint, that the power of silence is overlooked. Instead of telling people that they're wrong for not voting, we should maybe be asking the question, why don't people vote? Is it because they're not satisfied? Is it because they just didn't want to go? Do they not care? There's a lot of interesting questions that should be answered from that, more so than just, calling them out for being non-patriotic.
So what you're saying is, much like Facebook's lack of negative reactions, there's not a representation of non-voting in the voting system, right?
Right.
Because I think that's interesting.
You can't really go to the polls and go on your ballot and say abstained.
Right.
I would lean towards voting for a third-party candidate because after the two big parties, you got Green, Libertarian, and probably a couple more little guys. You should be able to find somewhere along the line where you can kind of toss in your third-party vote. And I think that would count in the sense that when people are prepping their campaigns and stuff, a third-party person who got, more than last time is bound to get more money than last time from whatever sources they have. And that can start to slowly push the needle one way or another. Whereas a no vote, like who's going to come in and be like, well, I'm going to commit $1 billion of funding to the no vote segment. Like that doesn't make any sense on like where you're even putting that money. But if Green Party gets, 1% more, that's probably a couple $100,000 coming in for their campaign or the Libertarian Party, or if there's an anarchist party or a hate everyone party, like if they get another 1%, that's more money coming in from random donors and stuff versus just not voting.
A radical view, like a radical idea would be that if enough people put in non-votes, they just either figure something out or they just have a re-election. Would that,
I think this kind of diverges away from
right, definitely.
But that's what I mean. I think that there's a bunch of unexplained reasoning that goes on. The phenomenon of non-voting.
Shifting back towards election 2016, is there a way that people are projecting voter turnout? Is that something we can do, or is it just something that we kind of make up day of?
There's not really a way to predict it. You can kind of gauge the fervor. And generally, I think that's how they do it. There's not a hard and fast way to calculate. Because even when you look at registered voter numbers, people don't really show up.
Right. Well, that was a discussion I had with a coworker yesterday, because Georgia is an early voting state, which I did not know. And he was saying, regardless of the political motivations that congressmen might have to make Georgia an early voting state, it's great for me because, I work a 60-ish hour a week job and I have a small child. So if I can hit the polling place on the way home from work on a day that it's not busy and then make it home for dinner, my wife and kid are happy. And that increases voter turnout in Georgia to a certain extent. But then, I don't know, voter turnout is just such a complicated issue. It feels like it should be more central to the discourse than it is, and especially in a year like this where everybody seems so dissatisfied with the electoral process.
With voter turnout, I've seen the headline where it's the more voters that turn out, the more Democrats there are. And then I've seen the same with the other parties. So everyone's more turnout, except in some cases where we have to do X, Y, and Z laws, such as the photo ID thing, that's popping up in some states or whatnot. And I'm thinking, it's 2016. Why can't we just go to Facebook and click yes or no on the voting thing? And
Which some countries do.
Yeah.
Not on Facebook, but some countries do completely electronic at-home balloting.
Voting on Twitter now. Hashtag your vote. It just seems so ineffective. And you have these if I spend $1 on my credit card in a weird place, I'll get a call from, the credit card company like, hey, is this actually you? Like, there's so much, quote unquote, evil technology control in all these other aspects of our life, except for voting, which is, I guess, super important. In America, patriotism, #vote, that it seems like there's so much wasted opportunity to get voter turnout up through technology. And we're all just like, go here and punch this little piece of paper. We got our hanging chads, and is this one fully punched through or not? And how'd that work out?
You did fully click the button on the website.
Yeah, you hovered. You didn't click.
Exactly. So it's like, well, technology, bro. Let's go.
I agree. Let's vote on Facebook. Let's see what. I was gonna be like, let's see what 2017 has in store for us, but there's not a presidential election then.
I ha-ha'd for Bernie.
Yep.
If that picks up, we started it here. That's an interesting point. I did see. So everybody by now probably has a credit card that has a chip in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And everybody probably knows that that's been going on in Europe for like a decade now. And we finally got it 10 years
and it's
later.
still not supported in most of our retail establishments.
Right.
Like, yeah, the guy didn't turn it on.
With internet voting, it's a good question because, like Taylor said, there are countries out there that vote using that kind of technology, that they have like chips in their IDs that they use. Like we have in passports, they have microchips in them now that you can use to confirm your identity and make going through customs a little bit quicker. But yeah, so it's going on. It's out there. I don't know if that will fix the problem though. I really feel like personally part of the problem doesn't have to do so much with people or the diversiveness of this campaign doesn't have to do with people voting right now as much as it does with people feeling like there's a need for change. A lot of news media has been focused on the increasingly high rhetoric of anti-establishment people. Mm-hmm. So I feel like a lot of the fervor comes from the divisiveness right now.
Yeah, we're trying so hard to not be each other that it kind of blurs the line of like who the various groups actually are.
I feel like maybe it's more than that. It's being everything that you're not. Like Donald Trump is trying to be everything that everyone else isn't, He's Donald Trump. He's not a Washington insider. He's a businessman. He's not a career politician.
He's a businessman.
Right. Like he knows his way around different things, and that's what makes him a good fit. Ben Carson does this classically. Like he's a neurosurgeon. He's been in tough situations. He's never been in Washington. That makes him a good fit for the job because he's not going to be, saddled by the...
he's not one of those people.
Right.
Yeah.
He's not a Beltway insider. So I feel like there's a lot of rhetoric that drives this kind of feeling of negativity right now, more so than actual facts that back anything up. Sarah Palin rode this wave really well, too, I think.
If she even believes in waves.
Okay, so one last thing before we go. In terms of the primaries, since we just got done talking about how everybody's like Donald Trump's in the lead or whatever, the next three weeks are going to be absolutely pivotal in deciding who is the nominee later on, because from the 23rd of February, which we're already into March 1st, we're going to hit Super Tuesday next week on March 1st, and a big amount of states give out their delegates, both Democrats and Republicans. So Texas is one of them that we're focusing on a lot lately. That's going to have a huge sway in who gets to be in the lead going forward. So I wouldn't put too much stock in what's going on right now because it's been fairly low. But we're going to know certainly by the middle of March what the field's going to look like. That's for sure.
All right, so our third topic this week comes from our guest, Albert. Albert, what do you have for us?
Hey, so I'm reading two books. One's called Rework. It's kind of like an entrepreneur handbook. Kind of tells a lot of interesting stories. And the other one is the Shark Tank: How to Jumpstart Your Business. And I provide two little excerpts for it. I'm only about 1/4 of the way through each one. And I guess an easier way to discuss it kind of spews from just hanging out with coworkers late at night. And there's always the one point where someone's like, well, if I was the boss, I would do it this way. And then everyone's like, no, if I was the boss, I would do it this way. Then it kind of, gets me thinking on what it takes to be the boss in that perspective of entrepreneurship and kind of like the best way to do that. And I start spitballing with different people who work at different companies and how they feel stuff can be improved. Because everyone, quote unquote, always thinks that they have the better idea. And sometimes it's been tried before. Sometimes it is a good idea, but it just never gets implemented. There's all sorts of different angles to approach this from. So I guess if each of you have a good, this is the obvious solution to at my old job or something, like an interesting story like that you have.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, I'm going to jump right on this question. I have talked to numerous coworkers about the amount of email that we send at my office and the amount of paper that we print. It's kind of absurd, the amount of stuff that we do on paper and email that we don't need to. We still use a paper form to reserve conference rooms, which is mind-boggling to me because Microsoft Outlook has that built into it, and we all use Outlook for our email. It's a program we already pay for. Yeah. And similarly, most people who follow this show know that, and most people who listen to podcasts know that almost every podcast is run via Slack nowadays. And I showed Slack to some of my coworkers who are roughly our age, and they were like, this is the greatest thing that has ever happened to Teams. And then I showed it to my boss, and she was like, well, the CEO probably wants to keep communication where he can track it in email. Not that he can't track that, but he's just used to possibly being able to track communication in email. And I understand both sides of that issue, but I think it's just this generational disconnect in the workplace right now, where a lot of the people I work with are used to paper forms and email because it's the workplace that they grew up in. And then those of us who are joining the workplace now are trying really hard to come up with what our workplace paradigm is. And so it becomes everybody at the bottom is trying to pitch these huge organization-wide solutions like Slack, which when you're the new person at a company is not a realistic thing for you to be advocating. And so, yeah, it's I don't know, it's a very interesting time, at least technologically, for me to be in an office setting.
Mm-hmm. Kind of a crackpot thing that I've been thinking about since I work in retail is my brother and I both worked in retail for a while, and we were having a conversation one day about the idea of cost of doing business in retail, because a lot of your time, a lot of times when people come in to clothing stores, I don't know if you guys do this. If you do, it's okay. But if you're buying something for something else, you buying it for yourself, you pick it up and you kind of put it in front of yourself to see if you can kind of gauge a size, right? Well, then you would just set it on top of the pile and you'll find your size or whatever and mess into this whole pile. Well, when you think about if there's a pile of 10 shirts and it takes an employee 5 minutes to refold all those shirts and they have to do it all the time, you waste so much time doing these particular things. And my not so brilliant idea that would cost so much money, but might be kind of interesting, have modular fitting room stores that have a screen inside of it. And then you can just have clothing that is delivered to your fitting room, or you can try it all on there. And then it kind of allows you to have it interactive where you can kind of style it and everything, and you can actually try on the clothes. Because I know a lot of people that shop with us, they don't like to order stuff online because, you have to put, they usually get multiple sizes, then your money's held up. You have to come back and return the stuff that you didn't want. It just becomes this big hassle of shopping online. And I think too, from a loss prevention standpoint, having an inventory of what's going out and being tried on versus what's being bought will, provide huge gains in terms of preventing loss, which is a big deal for retailers. We face that kind of issue all the time, and it really hurts us. I don't know. I just thought that would be kind of cool because I don't know how that would affect employees, but in terms of making things more efficient, I think you could do it.
Mm-hmm. I think I saw something. It was probably on CBS, and it was the drive-through grocery store, and so you drove up, similar idea to what you said, like, and it brings the stuff to you in like a conveyor or robotic system. You make all your selections, and then it calculates the best order so you don't smash bread with like a big gallon of water or gallon of milk. Who buys gallons of water? Wasteful. Don't do that. So, and it comes on a little conveyor belt, and they prepackage it, and then you pull up, and then you just load it up. So it'd be similar to that, but with clothing. I think that's a pretty interesting angle. And yeah, that resonates to me as one of those cool, awesome ideas that I would come up with, 10 minutes into folding clothes. I'd be like, this is just garbage. This is the worst. And I would talk to the manager, and the manager would probably dismiss me. Then I'd be, on break, like, what we should do? We should get a bunch of robots in here, program them, and drive them from home, and do our work like that.
Wait, you mean millennials wanting to work from home and automate everything? That's not a stereotype or anything.
That idea really resonates with me.
Well, then I know a lot of people don't like to interact with sales clerks either. So this idea that look at all the people that avoid going to a clerk when they go to the grocery store. You just go right to the automated line. I mean, we have this generation that's like ready to interface with screens all the time. Why not? There goes the pants Roomba. It's taking a pair of pants to somebody. You know what I mean? Like, it's just.
It's good. I like pants Roomba.
I want one of those. It can iron my pants for me. When the pants Roomba can iron my pants for me, I will buy that shit in a heartbeat.
I don't even know how. Whatever.
Don't think about it.
Right.
Don't think about how the pants Roomba works. It just does.
It just gets toasty, and then you put your pants on it, and it just steams it and turns into folded.
It gets them for you. That's the whole point.
It delivers you fresh, warm, pressed pants every day.
It's basically just a robot butler.
Great, I want that too.
It's Rosie.
I don't have to feed a robot butler unless I do, and then, then maybe
then
I don't.
It ceases to be a robot.
Right. It's actually... Anyway. Alright, so what was your question again, Albert? I'm sorry.
I guess to recap, when you're at work, what things do you see, both as a employee or as a manager, that you would change if you ran the show, if you were your own entrepreneur, if you were like, screw this, I'm starting my own blank, and we do it all better with robots or conveyor belts or
right. Well, as the most starter-uppiest small business person in this group, pretty much literally everything. I'm like, we could probably be doing this better, or this could be improved in some way. But it's an issue when it's like, we have 4.5 employees. We have like someone that doesn't come in all the time, and like one person only works like a couple hours every day. So basically, there's 3 people, and so since I work in screen printing, it's not exactly a great a simple solution, because it's like, well, we need to print more shirts. Well, how do we do that? Well, we have to spend like another couple $1,000s to get another like printing device, or like, we have to tear down a wall to make it more like convenient to do this thing or whatever. There's a lot of like construction, and then it's like you can't just exactly do that because it requires a lot of upfront money. So I would say, I guess if there's anything that we could improve, it's that we have a t-shirt, we have the design, that like the heat press, the heat transfer design on it. Now we have a piece of paper that tells you what the shirt design size and what the color is and what the design is. And then it has like stapled to it, it has the tracking slip that you use to slap on the envelope. So you're using like 2 or 3 pieces of paper, and so you just get a lot of paper waste, and it feels like there should be a better way to kind of like speed that up. But when you're dealing with like hundreds of shirts being stacked on top of each other, it's good to have tangible things that you can kind of like stick together to make sure they don't get lost. But I'm sure other church shops do it a lot better than that. But I don't know.
Yeah, that's a very interesting problem. But.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you say you have like 3.5 guys, and you can probably communicate between 3 guys pretty well, but what if you get to like 12 guys? Then you need like, I don't know, design version control. Like, is this version 1 of this shirt or version 2 of this shirt? Is it going out in these batches, those batches? We edited this, but you didn't inform one guy.
Right.
We didn't make it to the conference room because someone lost their piece of paper to meet at that time. So it's like those types of weird, infrastructure questions that always come up, and it's minute, but then it builds up into like 20-minute problems every day, then 30-minute problems.
Right.
Like at my company, they were using a Microsoft Word document to like track the schedule for some reason. And you can only have one editable version open, so one person would have it open and be like, "Hey, close that file so I can edit." It's like, what is going on here? What do you mean close that file so I can edit? So I showed them Google Docs, and their minds were blown. They lost. I'm watching that guy type right now, and that's just the first idea, and I have like 20 more that they just don't even understand. Yeah, Google Docs, pretty cool.
We also use a hole punch, like a punch card system too for clocking in and out, which also is the first time I've ever had to necessarily do that, which also feels similarly archaic, but
yeah, it's kind of incredible that like how adding people to an organization slows down change.
Yeah.
A guy that I work with always says that a person can turn on a dime, but people turn like the Titanic. And I think that's just like a really interesting comment on organizational communication. That like the more people you have, the harder it is to get them to adopt Google Docs.
Right.
It's like trying to get a child to eat vegetables.
Wait, you mean I have to have a Gmail account?
oh,
I have to.
I can't tell you how many people that come into where I work, and I'm like, "Would you like to join an email list?" And they're like, "Yeah," and it ends with @AOL.com. I'm like looking around for dinosaurs. Like, hold on.
No, it's okay. I took notes in a meeting last week in Evernote, and then just sent a link of my notes to my boss, and she was like, "What is this Evernote thing?
What is this wizardry?
Is that like public on the internet right now?" And I'm like, "No, only the people with the link can see it." But when I was sitting there on the iPad in the meeting, I wasn't like texting my friends. That was me taking notes on that meeting. And she was like, "Oh, I should probably do that so I don't have to carry notebooks anymore." And I'm just like, yeah, you should.
I'm pretty sure that's the devil, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
No, I think it's just like
Evernote, or was that like the 50th time and she's just now asking?
It was the first time.
Okay. Was it just going to the trash bin every other time?
And to her credit, she like has adopted it. That was last week, and she's like using Evernote this week. So
she's like, next week. So how about Slack? So I know you recently shot down Slack, but
I think Slack's a long time coming.
Come on.
These books that you sent us, Albert, I was a little bit skeptical at first because I've read some business books, and sometimes when I read business books, they feel really like, I am a successful businessman. This is how you, too, can be a successful businessman. But there was some stuff in here that like I really appreciated, and I've heard in other places and like really enjoyed. Particularly, I liked the piece about meetings, where it talks about how meetings are like the worst thing ever for your business, because if you calculate it in man hours, every 30-minute meeting is something like 6 man hours, depending on how many people are in there. That just completely destroys your day, plus all the time to prep for the meeting. And do you really need a 30-minute meeting, or do you need a 7-minute meeting, but you did 30 because Outlook defaults to giving you a 30-minute meeting, which is exactly how my office works. Like, whatever the default time in Outlook is, that's how long the meeting is.
What would we do without all that gap time in between, though?
Mm-hmm.
Work? Maybe. Probably not. Cat videos?
Go and make oatmeal, go and visit, your squeeze on the other side of the office. I don't know. I don't know what people do with their time. I like that. I like the rework book. That was really interesting.
Yeah, I picked that up on, I was walking around Barnes & Noble using the Amazon app to scan barcodes and then buy them. was like, I really see which business is winning out on this. And as I was looking at business, trying to buy it for cheap online.
As Amazon prepares to put in a physical bookstore.
Yeah, I saw that. It's kind of weird.
You know, if as long as it's Amazon prices, I'm in. You know, I'm not.
The insight that I liked the most out of that one was probably the underdo your competition. I thought that was a particularly interesting little bit there, because I feel like a lot of companies right now are trying to do everything, and no longer are they like conglomerates like Alphabet or something. I think maybe Apple might be good at this one. Like when we talked about this a little bit last week, I know I kind of cut that section out of the podcast, but at the end, I was saying how, you know, maybe that was Apple's downside, is that they moved away from having one particular or two particular products that they focused on, and they just went all into, and they changed to having this array of products that they have to combine with all of each other, and now they're running into all these problems. So I don't know. I thought that was particularly interesting. That kind of struck a chord with me, that I remember this, that, you know, just like doing a super good quality job might be better than having something that's like half-assed and does a whole bunch of stuff that you don't need.
Looking at you, Game Center. What are you even for?
Networking.
All right, our final topic this week comes from Tyler Reed. Tyler, what do you want to talk to us about?
Hey, kids. Today we're going to be talking about fair use. So this has kind of been an ongoing struggle on the internet, particularly on YouTube. But for me, it kind of personally came to a head, I guess, this week when Team 4 Star's YouTube channel got taken down. If you don't know, Team 4 Star is a channel that is mostly known for a abridged version of Dragon Ball Z, which features... you know, it's more than just like a lip sync change. You know, they edit it, they add extra lines, they essentially completely remake the content. You know, they do personal voice acting, all these people like revoice all the characters and stuff. So it's a very transformative work, which falls very clearly under fair use. And it got taken down. And so the video I gave everyone to watch was a video by Jim Sterling, the Jimquisition, in which he basically is like, why don't I just rip full movies and just put them on YouTube? It's not like it matters what I put on there anyway. It can get taken down regardless of how much how fair I'm using the fair use at all. Like, it doesn't matter. And it's just a critique of the YouTube's content ID system, where it seems like anyone for any reason can flag content because they feel like it. So I really just kind of wanted to just kind of get everyone's feelings about the situation on YouTube. If you even watch YouTube, I know at least half of us do.
So I guess that's the segue to me being a YouTube watcher.
Right.
Yeah, Content ID is a pain in the ass. Content ID has always been a pain in the ass. It is more of a pain in the ass than ever right now, like within the last 2 weeks as we record this on February 25th, 2016. They're retooling it, which in typical YouTube/Google speak means we're making some changes, but we're not going to tell you what they are, and we certainly won't give you a guide to how it works. It's been discussed at length on the Cortex podcast that YouTube is different from day to day, with no announcement of when or what changes are being made. And this is a great example of that is just really infuriating to me. So honestly, my solution as a YouTube creator is don't use anything copyrighted at all whatsoever, period. We produce all of the music on this show. We never use clips from anything. It is purely discussion. The only potentially copyrighted things we have are our thumbnail images. And even that would technically fall under fair use because
we don't even make money off of it.
Yeah, we're criticizing, and we're not running ads, so we're not making any money. So, yeah, that's honestly been the solution the whole time for this podcast was, let's just make sure we don't even have to deal with Content ID, because I'm terrified that they're going to shut us down.
But, I mean, with that being said, the gaming space on YouTube is, practically what it's known for at this point, and it feels like What? Don't use any copyrighted material.
The gaming space is getting totally dicked over because you can't make gaming content without showing clips of games, which is copyrighted material. Yeah, they're totally screwed.
I don't know what I think about this. I don't really know that much about this issue. I've been more in touch with the FBI Apple scandal this week than with fair use.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's why I kind of had like clerical questions that I wanted to ask. That's why I was waiting for you guys.
That's okay.
To kind of questions.
Well, go ahead.
Like give me. I know about this thing with the Fine Brothers. I already watched a reaction video about people reacting to reactions of reaction videos. But can you guys give me a
30-second rundown here?
Right, TIL.
Okay, so basically, Content ID is the system built into YouTube that determines if a video contains copyrighted content. It's pretty much automated at this point. There are very few humans that actually work on Content ID. When humans do come into contact with it, it's usually third parties, so not the uploader and not YouTube, making a claim against a video. The catch with Content ID is that YouTube allows anyone to make any claim on any video, even if they aren't the rights holder. In order for a video to be taken down, you do have to prove yourself as the rights holder, but your reasoning doesn't have to be given to the person who uploaded the video.
Right, and then they could monetize, or they can get the money from that during that time period.
Yeah, so what they can do is they can either hijack the ad revenue from that video, so all the ads played on that video, the money goes to the rights holder, or they can just say, completely take this video down. And in recent weeks, we've learned that people like the Fine Brothers have actually been given carte blanche by YouTube to just take whole videos and even whole channels down because they feel that it's infringing on their copyright. So YouTube is essentially trying to remove as much of the decision-making on fair use from their office as they can by crowdsourcing it to the rights holders, and rights holders are abusing that privilege.
Okay, so
such as claiming stuff for bad reviews. Just because you don't like their game, their movie, whatever, you could still have it taken down, even though it's completely within fair use. Go ahead.
Okay, first question. If they weren't... Okay, so just so with the Fine Brothers, if they weren't getting rid of this material and destroying these channels, and they were just getting the ad revenue from them, would this make it more outrageous what's going on? And from I don't know if you guys know about this particular thing, but from a legal standpoint, is it safer for YouTube to just let this stuff go? Like, is YouTube reacting this way because they don't want larger media conglomerates to come down on their back and police them more?
Yes.
And say, like, why aren't you, like Warner Brothers is coming down and, would come down and say, like, so people are talking about our movies on there in an unfavorable light, so take it down. So essentially they're kind of like passing the blame.
They are
kind of backhandedly, like, we didn't.
They're the worst middleman. They're the middleman in the worst way possible, and that they're getting it from both sides because the people aren't happy about their content getting taken down. And they're like, our movies are getting directly uploaded to YouTube without it, so.
So to answer your question, yes, Sean, it is legally more advantageous for YouTube to not do anything, which is why that's exactly what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Albert, are you involved in the YouTube space at all? Do you have any thoughts on this?
I'm just a viewer. Recently, kind of watched some of the video game stuff, reaction stuff, and I kind of see, I definitely side with a lot of the content creators. Every now and then I'll stumble upon, like for video game stuff, like leaked copies of this or that, and where the person that has the leaked copy already signed like an NDA and stuff. I'm like, this probably shouldn't be on there. Like, even for like critiquing purposes, like getting away with a little bit too much here. And not like I ever flagged them for that. But I thought about it, but I didn't want to click a bunch of buttons. I had stuff to do. So with people creating content, I've heard about this Dragon Ball Z thing. Someone linked it to me. I'm not a big Dragon Ball Z fan, so I'm like, what's going on here? So when they, for that specific example, when they do that, are they creating new storylines? I know they're redubbing and doing a bunch of stuff, but is it a parody, or are they using those art assets to create new stuff? I kind of just trying to see how it.
It's definitely parody because it takes the general storyline of the show and then uses a lot of the footage, but it's all like re-voice acted, so they have people that re-voice every single one of the characters, and then they definitely change the story like for comedic purposes and like for like timing and that sort of thing, and they definitely do go in and they definitely add their own creative input, like, well, we want the character to turn their head during this point. Well, that frame doesn't exist. We have to make it. So they even have videos that go through and show their process of that. There's a lot of work that actually goes into, like, doing this. And you're right that, like, if you just did a straight rip of a video game or, like, a movie, you know, like, okay, a better example. If you just straight ripped an episode of Dragon Ball Z and just put it on the internet, that's probably going to get taken down. That is not fair. But what they're doing is they're obviously like manipulating it in a way that's intended to be humorous and parody the show. So
this is kind of an interesting debate because we can talk about the legal definition of fair use all day long, and you can date that discussion all the way back to sampling in the 80s. But I think the thing that makes this situation so interesting is that it's not a legal case yet. This is people who are using a private company's service and are upset with the way the private company is treating them, which this creator who you linked us to, he makes a really long argument against that, where he says, people are just like, oh, well, if you're so pissed about it, don't put your stuff on YouTube. And his point is, as a video-making professional in 2016, if I want anyone to watch my videos, they have to be on YouTube. Do we think... Is it YouTube's place to solve this problem and keep their creators happy? Or is it the creators' place to find a new solution outside of YouTube?
Well, I would say that ideally YouTube wants people to be making a living off YouTube because that makes them more popular and more...
It makes them more money.
Yeah, it gives them more money. So they've set up a situation, that's why they have YouTube partners in the first place, is that the idea is that people can make a sustained living off of this service. So it's like, hurting people that make a living off YouTube is like counterproductive. It only hurts them as a service, to me. I mean, it makes sense. But
What happened in July that made Google's stock price shoot up so high?
I don't know.
Let me take a look.
Because I'm looking at their numbers to see if there's been any like market backlash against this, and it doesn't look like there has been.
Well, this is a pretty small portion of what Google does.
Yeah.
I mean, but there's a lot of... does anybody know what the estimated value of YouTube is right now?
No, not offhand. I mean, I can
A
look.
lot.
There's also this issue of the YouTube community is very insular, and so when it has problems, the rest of the world really doesn't give a shit.
Right. No one cares that a Dragon Ball Z parody account got destroyed.
But I mean, this starts as Dragon Ball stuff, but then it goes to something else. You know, it ends up being, you know what I mean? Like, I guess those are the questions that I have. Like, if you, okay, so let's say this moves to something bigger, you know what I mean? And then there's like a huge policing of YouTube, and as a functioning part of Alphabet, then what?
Bank of America estimated YouTube's worth at $70 billion in May of 2015.
I mean, this is like saying essentially a $70 billion company is now going through internal turmoil.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just have a bunch of other companies that are padding their earnings results, essentially. Because you have Google, the web company, and then you have the Android division that's making money on all the phones, and you have all of these other arms of Alphabet that are making enough money that I worry that YouTube is going to be a lower priority when things like this happen.
But do you think, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, because this seems like a big concern for us, but I guess what I'm saying is if this becomes a big enough issue, I don't think that Alphabet's just going to let a $70 billion arm of its company, an estimated $70 billion arm of its company, just kind of,
Yeah, no, they're definitely not going to do that.
Like, the amount of data and ad revenue that YouTube brings in, I can't imagine that, and they just came out with YouTube Red. So clearly they want to invest in this company. They want to invest in this website.
They want people to make money off YouTube.
Right. Oh, maybe that's another good question. Do you think that the advent of YouTube Red has anything to do with this? That maybe that's why do you think there's any connection here? Yes or or is it just...
I think it's sort of pseudo-randomly almost, because these are like third-party people. Like, all the incidents that have happened within like the past few weeks have been completely unrelated. And I don't know how like they're even like even in the video, they're like completely different people. They're like, one's a like Dragon Ball Z parody channel, one's like a movie review channel, like they're not really like related to the same thing. So I don't think that it has anything to do specifically with YouTube Red.
Does Anthony Fantano need to worry that someone's going to come after him?
I'm surprised he doesn't.
Yeah, Anthony Fantano is an interesting case because, like us, he doesn't use clips, and he is critiquing cultural texts. But, I mean, he says some pretty mean stuff about some pretty major label artists sometimes. Yeah, I don't know.
You wanna...
I was thinking more along the lines of Kid Cudi, whose recent album he called the worst thing he's ever listened to in his entire life.
Any luck on finding any research, Albert, and what's going on with...
Oh, during July. I kind of remember that. I saw an article that it's mainly that they beat earnings expectations by a pretty wide margin. And I kind of remember the overall tech field during that summer was a little like, everyone was a little scared of like user numbers not being as valuable. So when they came in and beat the numbers by a high amount, that's kind of why.
Okay. Because it jumped to like $150 million over the course of a month.
And I'm not sure what numbers they disclosed, but they probably had their earnings call, which you can probably find and listen to, probably like 45 minutes of guys talking about numbers. I don't really listen to any of those, but go right ahead.
Yeah, no, you can just get
I just
on Twitter
wasn't sure if there was like something that went on there, because I'm just trying to look at the data right now to see if it seems to be having any effect on what's going on. Because I mean, but knowing that information, knowing that they had such a big stock price. Sorry, I said that they went up by $100-something million. The stock price went up $100, like more than that, $150. Like, knowing that user data drives that price, I just think there's like a bigger concern here. Not only is there a concern for content developers, but it's weird that YouTube seems to be taking this like hands-off approach to this. You figure they would be kind of aggressive in making sure that users continue to use their website.
But it's just because who's gonna fight them? Who's going to compete against them?
Yeah, it's not like people are going to go to Vimeo.
No.
I forgot about that website.
Exactly.
It's for art projects.
And corporate videos. That's about it.
Right, art projects.
Like, you can post videos to Facebook now, and those are hosted by Facebook, I believe, because their revenue went up a ton because they said having tons of videos on Facebook, like pushing the video side instead of just straight posts.
Yeah, the problem.
I've never posted anything on Facebook.
The problem with Facebook video is that their view numbers are really, really inflated. So for a while there, I think they upped it, but at initial launch, Facebook counted 3 seconds of view without audio as a view, which means if you scrolled past that video in your news feed, it counted you as one view.
That's pretty shitty.
Yeah, and they've since changed that to where I think it's like 15 seconds without sound or 10 seconds with sound, which is a much more realistic number, but it's still not as high as it probably should be.
Yeah.
Man, that really makes me feel like a goldfish.
Yep. Welcome to the internet where we literally watch how long you watch our videos. I do that with this podcast.
We have like 10 seconds to get the gist of the podcast in.
Yeah, I guarantee you we only have like 10% of our initial audience at this point in the podcast.
I mean, he was upset.
Yeah.
Are you like as upset as he is about this?
I mean, I'm only not as upset because I didn't get my video flagged for Content ID for showing less than 10 seconds of a trailer by a company. So it's like, well, I'm obviously never going to be that upset because honestly that'd be pretty upsetting if it was in my position. But I mean, actually what upsets me more is that entire channel just got taken down through like a bot hitting a bunch of videos. That bot probably clicked like 4 buttons on each of those videos and just gone. A channel with 2 million subscribers just disappeared from the face of the earth with that. And it's like, it's just annoying that there has to be so much more work done on the receiver side of it than the offender. Like, the person who's flagging the videos presses like 2 buttons. But you have to like work to gain it back. It feels like you're guilty until proven innocent, and it feels like it should be the other way around.
Yeah, on this week's Hello Internet, CGP Grey said, it's like they ban first, ask questions never.
Right. It's like, send a like a minute segment. You have to physically like take a section of the video and then like flag it, send it to YouTube, and then they have to personally review it and then be like, yeah, I guess that is breaking fair use, isn't it? And then they have to then message the person whose video it is, and then they can maybe have that video taken down. You know, like, what the fuck is this 3-strike thing?
Is there any information on the people that are in charge of moderating and administrating fair use claims?
No.
Is it like lawyers?
I'm sure there are lawyers involved, but they don't make public what that process looks like.
Right. And I think that's really what the moral of the story is that there needs to be some more, like, disclosure. Like, I feel like we need to know more about this process, or it needs to be more, like transparent so we can know what you're doing wrong and how to prevent that from happening. You know? It's just what I'm saying.
And now it's time to end the show the way we always end the show, with a round of shameless plugs, starting with Tyler. Tyler Reed, what do you want people to do this week?
Oh, hi, everyone. You should visit my website, tylerdreed.com. You can find my tweets, my Instagrams, some illustrations, some designs. You can find a little button that says contact, and you can contact me, and we can work together on a project and make something beautiful together. You can also find my work at TDR Design on Instagram and Twitter. I wanted to use Anchor more, but I haven't. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly the purpose or point of Anchor is, but I really want to use it. And I'm also there on TDR Design.
Sean, shameless plugs from you.
So this week I'm gonna work on the stuff that I didn't get to present in our little section today, and also have the links up there with a little bit more explanation. So look for that this week as well. We're in Punkland, so remember to go out and do your Punkland awesome things. Go do like a local concert or eat a local place, and report to us, and we'll give you a shout out to our little network and let everybody know what you're doing, just to get out there and be a part of your community and do stuff up right.
So we are or are not abstaining from doing something in Punkland. I feel like we need a rundown.
For those who don't remember, because it was a year ago, Punk Lent is exactly the same time as regular Christian Lent, but instead of giving something up, you intentionally go out of your way to do something local. So whether that's eating local, going to a local show, shopping at a local boutique, etc. Punk Lent. It's a fake holiday we made up just like every other fake holiday.
Friendsgiving.
Friendsgiving. Albert, thanks so much for coming back like 20-something episodes later. What shameless plugs do you have?
Well, my podcast, Pod Faded, so we're actually no longer doing it. So I'm just internet wild card.
Oh, snap.
Nothing to plug. Just being myself. Just a guy on his own on the internet.
And that is a dangerous way to live. Well,
so, there you go.
You can follow me on Twitter at TC Olmstead. You can like the show on Facebook or follow us on Twitter or Anchor. You can review the show on iTunes. It's a great way for other people to find the show. You can also check out my spin-off podcast, Forced Fandom, where we're watching the first season of Twin Peaks. Spoiler alert, Emily is totally not into the owls. Other than that, we will be back next week with some more brunch. But Sean's moving to Washington, D.C., so it's going to be a little bit different. And we don't really know what it's going to be like, and we'll just have to see when that happens. But in typical Dudes Brunch fashion, we decided to wait until the very last minute to tell you, and we'll see you next week to see how it pans out.
Books.
Tyler doesn't read books.
I read articles, you plebes.